Okay, here are 11 reasons why you might want to play Ultimate Frisbee barefoot. Reason number 1, if you have cleats and they don't match the turf you're on, your risk of ACL injury actually increases. So there are cleats that are made for grass, there are cleats that are made for turf, and if you wear turf cleats on grass or grass cleats on turf, the traction changes. You can get too much grip, too much force gets driven through your foot. It's stopping too suddenly. It's almost gripping too hard. And you're starting to transmit forces up into your ACL that your knee isn't meant to deal with. Now, we've been running around barefoot since the beginning of time, since running started. We know how to run bare feet. And your injury likelihood, your ACL injury likelihood across all kinds of surfaces goes way down when you don't worry about your feet stopping suddenly because of your footwear. So reason number 1, lower ACL damage risk. Reason number 2, you're less likely to roll your ankle when you are playing barefoot. And that's because if this is the surface of the ground and this is your foot is flush to the ground. So it's really hard to roll. You've got so much stability. Your toes are able to spread out and create a nice wide base. Now, when you pull all of your toes in and make your feet narrower, raise them up on some spikes, now you have a little bit more room for your ankle to roll. So reason number 2, less likely to roll your ankle if you're playing barefoot. The third reason you might not want to play in cleats, and this is a weird one, it's very personal to me, is that you're actually less competitive when you play barefoot. Now, if you think about it this way, you put your cleats on, you now have more traction, you can cut a lot harder, no one's going to argue with that. That is in the direction of taking the game a little bit more seriously. When you can cut that hard, you can really force yourself to do everything it takes to win. Now, I'm not saying that professional players, college players should play barefoot, but I am saying that maybe rec players, myself included, might have more fun if the cues that they're giving themselves when they take their shoes off and go out and play are pointing toward a game that's a little bit more fun, tailored toward enjoyment, and less toward competition. So reason number 3 is barefoot's more fun. The fourth reason that I love to play barefoot is that it feels way better. Now, when you're running around barefoot, you don't have to worry about blisters caused by cleats. You don't have to worry about turf toe caused by cleats. And you don't have to worry about knee and ankle and joint pain because when you're running around barefoot, you can't stop and start quite as suddenly. And now, if I'm running on dry grass and I want to change direction, it usually takes me 3 small steps, maybe 5, if I'm running really fast, to come to a stop and then to take off with, again, more smaller steps than I would otherwise have to take if I was wearing cleats. If I'm wearing cleats, I just plant once, my foot's going to stop, and I'm going to run in the other direction. That one plant absorbs all of my force, and then I've got to run in that opposite direction, whereas with bare feet, that force of that one plant is actually distributed over maybe 3 steps. The fifth reason that you might want to play barefoot gets a little sciencey, but we have these tiny little nerve endings in our fingers, in our hands, and in our toes, and at the bottom of our feet, underneath our feet. Now, those nerve endings send signals up to our brain, and then our brain can create movement patterns for our feet based on those signals. So the most accurate signals that your feet are able to send your brain come from having bare feet. And you lose a lot of that accuracy when you even wear socks. So if you put on a pair of socks and walk around, those small nerve endings can't send as detailed a signal to your brain. Now, if you think about wearing cleats, you're actually really interrupting that signal from those small nerves. They're shut off almost completely. And that's when you start to get into situations where you're not quite feeling the ground as accurately as you might otherwise be, and injuries can result if you're not used to your cleats. Now, we see this with putting on a new pair of cleats or a different pair of cleats or playing on a different surface where you haven't learned that movement pattern with that footwear. So reason number 5 is get that signal accuracy from those nerves. The sixth reason you might want to give playing Ultimate Frisbee Barefoot a try comes down to peak forces. And the easiest way to illustrate this is running on pavement with a really padded, thick-soled running shoe versus running on pavement barefoot. If you have that running shoe, you're not really going to care too much about how hard your feet hit the ground because that padded sole is absorbing so much force for your feet, for the bottom of your feet, and it doesn't hurt. If you're running down that same road with bare feet, you're going to run a lot softer because it actually hurts for your feet to be hitting the ground too hard. So when you have those shoes on, what ends up happening is, yeah, sure, your feet aren't hurting, but there's damage being done over the long term, and you'll see this with marathon runners who have had knee and hip replacements because over time those forces add up. When your legs, hips, joints, ligaments, tendons are all absorbing too much force over the long term, that can cause damage for your skeletal and muscular health. So the way to lower peak stress on your joints is to run around barefoot. The seventh reason you might want to play barefoot is it's free to play in bare feet. You just take off your flip-flops or your shoes, you walk onto the field, you're good to go. Cleats, at least where I live, cost anywhere from $40 to $240. I mean, you can spend as much money as you like on a pair of cleats. And if you have a family, if they're starting to play Frisbee, paying for those cleats, especially kids, can add up. I mean, you multiply the cost of the cleats times the number of kids times the number of times they grow out of their cleats. So that expense can multiply pretty quickly for families of Ultimate players. Goes to zero when you play barefoot. Also, if you're just starting the game, you're just giving yourself a little test to see if you even like it, why not just play your first couple games barefoot and make sure that you like the game before you invest in the cleats if you decide that you want cleats. Reason number 8 ties into reason number 7, and it's that you won't forget your bare feet at home. And that gives you a sort of sense of invulnerability. It makes you less fragile. It makes you less susceptible to disaster if you drive to a tournament and you forgot your cleats in another gym bag at your house. And for somebody who is dependent on playing in cleats, that'll wreck their whole weekend if the tournament's far away. Now, for someone who plays barefoot all the time, or is at least comfortable playing barefoot sometimes, they'll just play barefoot and it won't be a big deal. Number 9. People are going to think you're a little bit crazy if you play bare feet, and that's not entirely a bad thing. Author Tim Ferriss, who wrote The 4-Hour Workweek, says that we should all do comfort challenges every day, things that stretch us outside of our comfort zone for reasons of personal growth. He suggests that you go and lie down in the middle of a public square, for example, just because it's socially uncomfortable to go against the herd. And that builds character, makes us better people. Number 10, and this one's cheeky. Other players are going to give you a little bit more space when you play barefoot because they have a slightly irrational fear of stepping on your toes. Now, I say irrational because players very rarely step on each other's feet. Now, their fear of stepping on my feet really isn't so much their problem because, I was the one who chose to play barefoot. And if you play barefoot, it'll be your choice as well, and you accept the risks of getting stepped on, and it hurting. But I found, and this has happened to me over the course of seasons, over the course of years, maybe half a dozen times or a dozen times, other players have come up to me, and sometimes they're a little upset, and sometimes they're not, but they'll say, I don't want to be very close to you. I can't mark you very close, or at least I feel like I can't mark you as closely as someone wearing cleats because I'm afraid to step on your feet. So they give me a little extra space. Even after I say, nope, don't worry about it, mark me as close as you want, they still give me extra space, and it's kind of awesome. Okay, we made it. Reason number 11 that you might want to play Ultimate Frisbee bare feet is that even if your feet get stepped on, it doesn't hurt much more than if you get stepped on wearing cleats. And the reason for that is, you think about cleat construction, they're made of really thin, light material. The tops of your cleats, the fabric is only like that thick. So if you think about a 160-pound person wearing cleats stepping on your foot, and you're wearing cleats too, it's mostly the pressure of the spikes of their cleats pushing into the top of your foot that hurts. Now, whether you have that thin layer of cleat fabric on your foot or not, it's gonna hurt. So I think the fear that people have around getting stepped on is counterbalanced by the overall net gain of playing barefoot. Now, if you think about the total pain of being stepped on once, that's offset by the fact that I don't deal with blisters, I don't deal with turf toe, my knees don't hurt anymore, my legs and hips and everything are way healthier because I'm running barefoot, which is a way healthier way to run. And I'm just a happier player. I'm having more fun out there. So I hope you guys give a shot playing barefoot. And if you like this video, remember to hit the thumbs up for more like this, subscribe, and if you want to learn how to throw your forehand insanely far, head over to frisbeethrows.com. I've got a 12-minute training video. People have already been doing it and getting great results. Give that video a shot, and I promise you, you'll be throwing your forehand way farther than you ever have before, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, even advanced players can benefit from this if they don't have an advanced forehand. If you have an advanced forehand, I mean, good for you, you've already done it, but if your forehand isn't like half the length of the field or the entire length of the field, check out the video, it's free, and I hope to see you there.